Reducing food waste is one of the most important things we can do to reverse global warming. Chad Frischman, 2017. Every year in the United States, millions of tons of perfectly edible food is thrown away, while, at the same time, millions of people are struggling to find their next meal. That contradiction reveals a major flaw in our food system. Tristan Stewart is someone who has dedicated his life to exposing that flaw. Today, I'm going to be sharing Stewart's story and explain how food waste connects to a larger systemic problem and show why the United States should require food businesses to donate surplus food instead of discarding it. Tristan Stewart grew up on a farm where he learned how food was processed and distributed from an early age. This experience gave him a unique perspective on how the food system works, but more importantly, where it fails. In his 2009 book, Waste, he states, "We are systemically throwing away vast quantities of food that could be eaten." Stewart is a globally recognized food waste activist and author who has studied food systems and waste patterns for years. As he continued his work, Stewart discovered that supermarkets, restaurants, and many other businesses were discarding large amounts of food, of perfectly edible food, and that this was not just occasional waste. It was happening on a massive scale. In fact, Dana Gunders in 2017 stated that up to 40% of food in the U.S. goes uneaten. Dana Gunders is a leading food waste expert in research in the Natural Resources Defense Council, specializing in sustainability and resource use. But think about that quote. Half of all of our food never gets eaten. Stewart began to realize that this wasn't just about waste, it was about inequality. While food is being thrown away, millions of people are still struggling with hunger. Research by Brian Rowe in 2020 shows that both consumer behavior and business practices contribute to this imbalance. Rowe is an agricultural economist whose research focuses on consumer behavior and food waste patterns. At this point, Stewart recognized that this problem clearly, that there isn't just a shortage of food, it's a failure to use what we already have. So, he decided to act. Stewart began writing, speaking, and organizing campaigns to raise awareness about food waste. He pushed for changes in how food is distributed and encouraged systems that redirect surplus food instead of discarding it. As he puts it, the tragedy is not scarcity, but waste. Today, Stewart is a global leader in food waste advocacy, influencing how people and governments think about this issue. But Stewart's story connects to a much larger problem. In the United States, food waste is created by a combination of business practices, consumer behavior, and a lack of regulation. This happens almost everywhere. Grocery stores, restaurants, and even in our own homes. One major issue is confusion around food labels. Emily Broad-Leib explains that confusing date labeling is a major driver of food waste. Emily Broad-Leib is a food law professor who studies food waste, or food policy and regulations, but particularly those related to labeling and waste. People often throw away food because of a best by date, even when it's still perfectly good to eat. At the same time, businesses reject food simply because it doesn't look perfect. All of this adds up to a system where waste is normalized. That's why Stewart's work matters. It shows that the problem is not accidental. It's built into the system. So, what do we do about it? First, we have to recognize the scale of the problem. According to the USDA, in 2025, between 30 and 40% of the food supply is wasted. The USDA is the United States Department of Agriculture, a federal agency that tracks national food production and waste data. But at the same time that this food is being wasted, millions of Americans still face food insecurity. As Dana Gunders explains, food waste is the single largest component of landfills. This shows that this is not just social, it's environmental too. Now, we have to understand the cause. Food waste happens because of business decisions, lack of clear policies, and everyday habits. Emily Broadleaf points out that date labelings are not federally standardized, which leads to lots of confusion and unnecessary waste. And according to Brian Rowe, consumer expectations and retail standards contribute significantly to food waste. Excuse me. So this isn't just one problem, it's a whole system of problems, which then brings us to the solution. The United States should require businesses to donate surplus food instead of discarding it. This is a practical solution that's actually already worked in many smaller programs. Food banks and donation networks have shown that surplus food can be safely and effectively redistributed. As Tristan Stewart states, we have the ability to feed everyone, but not if we keep wasting what we already produce. By requiring businesses to donate surplus food, we can reduce waste, help people in need, and create a more efficient system. Reducing food waste is one of the most important things we can do. That's where I started this talk, and it's where I'm going to end it. So, today I shared Tristan Stewart's story, explained the causes of food waste, and showed why change is very necessary. And as Stewart reminds us, the true cost of food waste is not what we lose, but what we fail to use. The United States should require businesses to donate surplus food instead of discarding it. Thank you.